The ancestral staff split with a crack like thunder, and the invisible masquerades wailed their warning. But Nnamdi, armed with his Harvard MBA and modern sensibilities, couldn't hear them. He didn't know that his stepmother's bitter prayers had already set events in motion that would shatter his world. 2 weeks earlier, in their luxury apartment in Lekki, Lagos, the Okafor family was preparing for their annual New Year's trip to their ancestral village in Anambra State. Nnamdi Okafor, a prominent investment banker, watched his 3 children chase each other around their marble-floored living room while his wife, Chioma, meticulously packed bags in the bedroom. That morning, their household shrine, a small wooden altar tucked away in a corner, had inexplicably fallen, spilling sacred chalk and kola nuts across the floor. The family's ancestral staff, passed down through 7 generations, had vibrated with an energy that made the air thick with warning. But Nnamdi, educated at Harvard and proud of his modern outlook, had dismissed these signs with a wave of his hand. "No, Chioma called out, using the endearment she'd brought from their village days. "I think we should visit Dibia Okonkwo before we travel this year. The signs are too strong to ignore." Nnamdi sighed heavily. Despite her master's degree in economics and her position as a university lecturer, Chioma still clung to what he considered village superstitions. "Not this again, we're educated people. Our Mercedes has the latest safety features, we don't need protection from spirits." Their eldest son, 15-year-old Obina, looked up from his phone. "Seriously, Mama? This isn't 1960. Even Pastor Emmanuel says we shouldn't mix Christianity with traditional beliefs." What they couldn't see were the 4 ancient masquerades that had materialized in the corners of their living room, their wooden faces twisted with concern. These were the Okafor family's guardian spirits, appointed by generations of ancestors to watch over their lineage. They had protected the family through wars, colonialism, and independence. Now they watched helplessly as their charges stripped away layers of spiritual protection in the name of progress. Chioma pressed her lips together, hurt but not surprised. Ever since Nnamdi had become the youngest executive director at his bank, he'd begun dismissing their traditions as primitive. Gone were the days when he would lead morning prayers, or consult the elders before major decisions. Now he trusted only in his Harvard MBA and his new Mercedes GLE. That night, as Chioma prepared for bed, the air in their bedroom grew heavy with presence. In her dreams, she found herself in a vast marketplace unlike any in the physical world. Here, masquerades of every rank and power gathered in council. The greatest among them, the ideal king of all masquerades, towered above the rest, its elaborate costume reaching toward the stars. "Daughter," the ideal spoke, its voice resonating through her bones, "dark forces gather against your household. Your husband's stepmother has awakened things better left sleeping. The ancient ones are disturbed." In her dream, Chioma saw their car surrounded by masks, not the familiar masquerades of their festivals, but dark, twisted ones that seemed to hunger for something. Behind them stood Adana, Nnamdi's father's second wife, her hands stained with sacrificial chalk and blood. She woke up shaking, but when she tried to tell Nnamdi, he merely mumbled about her watching too many Nollywood movies before bed. The next evening, while driving home from work, Nnamdi encountered an unusual sight. At a usually busy intersection now strangely deserted, an elderly woman stood alone, wearing a wrapper made from the kind of expensive vintage Oquit cloth that wasn't made anymore. The air around her shimmered with a light visible only to those with spiritual sight. Unknown to Nnamdi, this was no ordinary woman, but Ani herself, the earth goddess come to deliver a final warning. The guardian masquerades had pleaded with her to intervene, knowing that only a deity of her stature could penetrate Nnamdi's worldly armor. Something about her commanded his attention. He pulled over. "Mama, do you need assistance?" The old woman's eyes seemed to glow in the gathering dusk. "If you would be so kind, my son. I'm going to Oja." During the drive, the woman sat quietly, her presence filling the car with an inexplicable weight. The dashboard electronics flickered, responding to her energy. Finally, she spoke. "The new year brings changes, my son. Some welcome, some not. The old gods and the new god argue about your fate." Nnamdi gripped the steering wheel tighter. "What do you mean, Mama? You plan to travel soon?" "The roads." She paused, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The roads are hungry this season. If you must go, cleanse your house first. Listen to your chi." She turned to look at him directly. "Pride comes before a great fall, and some falls break more than bones. The masquerades weep for what is to come." Nnamdi forced a laugh. "Mama, we make this journey every year. Nothing will happen. We have Jesus, and that's enough protection." "Oh," she smiled sadly, "but did not your grandmother teach you? The Christian God and our ancient ways are not enemies. They are like two hands washing each other." Meanwhile, in their ancestral village, another scene was unfolding. In a compound marked by ancient ogirisai trees, Nnamdi's father's second wife, Adana, sat before a shrine of twisted metal and dark wood. Around her, lesser masquerades danced in agitation, sensing the wrongness of what was about to happen. Every year, she muttered, dropping dried herbs into a clay pot, "They come here in their big car, with their city airs. While my children trek home on foot, if they come at all." Her visitor, a woman known only as Agodinwe, rumored to be a powerful priestess of Ekwensu, the trickster deity, nodded sympathetically. "The world is truly upside down when the son of a second wife towers above the children of the first wife." Adana's face hardened. "Not this year. I have watched for 20 years as my mate's son prospered while my children struggled. Enough is enough." They made their way to a sacred grove where even the bravest hunters feared to tread. The trees seemed to bend away from their path, and the air grew thick with unseen presences. Here, the barriers between worlds were thin, and dark spirits pressed close, drawn by Adana's bitter intentions. Agodinwe began a chant, calling on forces better left unnamed. The guardian masquerades of the Okafor family tried to intervene, but their powers were limited by Nnamdi's own rejection of their protection. "But remember," she warned, "this kind of work demands a price. The spirits of the crossroads do not give without taking. Whatever it costs," Adana declared, "I will pay." The dark priestess smiled, knowing that the price would be far higher than Adana imagined. For in dealing with the shadow spirits, the punishment for failure often fell not just on the perpetrator, but on their entire lineage. Back in Lagos, strange things began happening in the Okafor household. The children's pet cat, usually calm, began hissing at shadows where invisible masquerades stood guard. Their youngest daughter, 8-year-old Adana, named after her grandmother in a gesture of peace, started having nightmares about roads that led nowhere and masks that wept blood. The morning of their departure, Chioma woke at dawn to pray. To her surprise, little Adana joined her, clutching her mother's wrapper. The child had inherited her mother's spiritual sight, and could see the ancestral guardians gathering in unprecedented numbers around their home. "Mama," the child whispered, "I saw Grandma Adana in my dream. She was crying black tears. And behind her." The girl shuddered. Behind her were things wearing masks, but they weren't like the masquerades at festivals. They were wrong. Chioma pulled her daughter close, her heart racing. Before she could respond, Nnamdi burst in, already dressed in designer clothes for the journey. "Chi, why aren't you ready? We need to leave early to beat traffic." "Nnamdi, please. Let's pray as a family first. Something is not right in the spiritual realm." "Enough. This village mentality is embarrassing. What will our children think? We are modern Christians, not pagans." At that moment, the ancestral staff in their living room suddenly split in two, a crack like thunder accompanying the break. The guardian masquerades wailed silently, their power to protect the family weakening with each of Nnamdi's dismissive words. But as they loaded the Mercedes, nothing worked as it should. The car wouldn't start. 3 different mechanics found nothing wrong, yet the engine remained dead. Unknown to them, the family's guardian spirits had disabled the vehicle in a desperate attempt to prevent the journey. "See what your prayer drama has caused," Nnamdi snapped. "We'll take my backup car." But the second car also refused to start. "Fine." Nnamdi threw up his hands. "We'll take a commercial flight to Anambra. I won't let mechanical problems stop us." At the airport, their flight was mysteriously cancelled. Every attempt to leave Lagos seemed blocked by invisible hands. The guardian masquerades, working in concert with both traditional spirits and Christian angels, were fighting a desperate battle to protect the family from their own stubbornness. Finally, they found seats on a luxury bus heading east. As the driver started the engine, Chioma stood up. "Please," she announced to the bus, "let us pray for journey mercies." Some passengers joined in, their combined prayers creating a shield of light visible to those with spiritual sight. Others smirked. Nnamdi slid down in his seat, mortified by what he saw as his wife's provincial behavior. The journey began smoothly enough. The children shared their snacks, the driver played popular highlife music, and even Nnamdi relaxed. But in the spiritual realm, a great battle was unfolding. The guardian masquerades raced alongside the bus, fighting off the dark spirits that Adana's ritual had summoned. Then everything changed. They were approaching a bridge when the driver's voice cut through the music. "The brakes. Jesus! The brakes are gone." Panic erupted. Ahead, the bridge was under repair, with only one narrow lane open. On that lane, a fuel tanker approached. In the spiritual realm, the dark masks summoned by Adana's ritual danced in triumph. Time slowed. Chioma grabbed her children, covering them with her body. Her prayers rose above the chaos. "Chukwu Ebioma, save us." The bus swerved, trying to avoid the tanker. It broke through the bridge's barrier, teetering on the edge of a deep ravine. At that moment, something extraordinary happened. The guardian masquerades, empowered by Chioma's prayers, grew to enormous size. Christian angels descended, their light piercing the darkness. In a rare moment of cooperation, the ancient spirits and heavenly host worked together, their combined power creating a barrier of protection around the bus. In that moment of suspension, when time seemed to stop, Oni herself appeared in the aisle of the bus, now wearing her full regalia as Earth Goddess. Only Nnamdi could see her. "Pride," she said softly, "is a luxury you cannot afford. Your ancestors and your God have joined forces to save you. Remember this day." Then the bus tipped. But instead of plunging into the ravine, it hung there, as if held by invisible hands. Later, witnesses would swear they saw a bright light surrounding the bus, while others claimed to have seen giant masquerades holding it up. Some spoke of angels, others of ancient gods. All agreed that something miraculous had occurred. When help arrived, they found something extraordinary. While other passengers had minor injuries, Chioma and her children were completely unharmed. Nnamdi had suffered a broken leg, but he was alive, something the rescue workers called impossible given where he'd been sitting. In the hospital that night, Oni appeared again by Nnamdi's bedside, this time accompanied by a host of masquerades and what appeared to be a Christian angel. "Now you understand," she said quietly. "Your father's first wife went to dark places to harm you. But she forgot that light always overcomes darkness, whether that light comes from ancient spirits or new faith. Your wife's prayers built a shield that even the strongest evil couldn't fully penetrate. The old and new joined forces to protect you." Tears rolled down Nnamdi's cheeks. "I've been such a fool." "Yes," the goddess agreed. "But foolishness need not be permanent. The greatest wisdom often comes from our deepest faults." Your guardian spirits never abandoned you, even when you abandoned them. Neither did your God. In the following months, as Nnamdi recovered, the family underwent a transformation. The morning prayers he once mocked became his foundation. The traditions he had dismissed as primitive became his guide. His children, too, began to change, learning to balance their modern lives with respect for their heritage. The family shrine was restored to its proper place of honor, now sitting comfortably beside their Christian Bible. The guardian Masquerades, once again acknowledged and respected, resumed their protective duties with renewed vigor. More surprises were to come. During his recovery, Nnamdi discovered that his stepmother, Adana, had used his father's land as collateral for the dark ritual. When the curse backfired, it demanded its price. She lost not only her sight but also her share of the family land. The dark spirits she had summoned turned on her, and only the intervention of Chioma's prayers prevented them from taking an even greater toll. Yet Chioma, showing the grace that had always defined her, insisted on helping Adana's children. Hatred, she said, can only be overcome by love. She understood that the spiritual battle was not won by destruction, but by transformation. Years later, people still tell the story of the Okafor family's New Year journey. They tell it in boardrooms and village squares, in penthouses and mud houses. They tell it as a reminder that in our rush to embrace the new, we mustn't discard the wisdom of the old. That success without humility is like a house built on sand. That prayers, especially a mother's prayers, can move mountains and hold back darkness. The story became such a powerful testament to spiritual harmony that even the most modern and educated began to pay attention to their spiritual heritage. They learned that true progress doesn't mean abandoning faith or tradition, but rather finding ways to let both guide them through the complexities of contemporary life. As for Nnamdi, he now starts every day with both Christian prayers and traditional libation to the ancestors, while the family's guardian Masquerades dance invisibly around their home, their power strengthened by this recognition of spiritual balance. In this modern world, he often tells young executives who visit him for mentoring, "We think we must choose between the old ways and the new. But wisdom lies in understanding that they can coexist, each strengthening the other. Some forces are beyond our MBAs and balance sheets, and true power comes from acknowledging both the visible and invisible realms." And every New Year, instead of traveling, the Okafors now host a huge celebration in Lagos, where both city sophisticates and village relations gather to share stories, break kola nuts, and remember the year when ancient spirits and Christian angels joined forces to prove that faith, in all its forms, is stronger than pride.